Okay, we are recording. Hey guys, welcome. Of course, I'm Docg, and this is Docg Presents, and you're listening to us live on HamiltonRadio.net, and we're also live on Zoom. So if you guys want to ask questions, you can. I have a guy here that I recently met on Facebook, and he's been a wrestler for about 24 years. He goes by the name of Jack Lord, and we're going to talk old-time wrestling here. We're going to talk a little bit about how he started, where he began. So Jack, let's take us through your life, how you started, why did you want to get into wrestling, and where you kind of ended up.
Well, I started. I was a fan from as far back as I could remember. My grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and we used to go over on Saturdays and visit. And he and I would sit in the living room and watch wrestling. So I don't ever remember a time when I wasn't a wrestling fan, and my granddad took it serious. He was an easygoing, fun-loving guy, but he was serious in the pulpit, and he was serious when wrestling was on, and you didn't mess with either one of those. But so, and when I was 16, I hooked up with what we call an outlaw wrestling show, and I was a ring guy for several years. After I graduated high school in '77, a year after I graduated, I joined the Army because I wanted to wrestle. I just didn't think I was big enough. And the Army allowed me the opportunity to, get physically fit. And I blew my knees out. They retired me, said I'd never be able to do anything physical. And 2 weeks after I came home from the Army in '85, I started training. And a month after that, I actually started wrestling. And I wrestled for 24 years. I retired 11 years ago.
Wow.
So this year actually marked 45 years that I have been involved with professional wrestling.
God bless you, brother. That's a lot of knee knocking and clotheslines and all that stuff. So yeah, so take me to some of your bouts. I mean, some of your memorable bouts. Who did you wrestle with, and did you have some really significant wrestling matches?
Oh gosh, I got to wrestle some of the bigger names of the old time guys. I worked with Ricky Steamboat. I wrestled Big John Studd. I wrestled Junkyard Dog many occasions. He and I were pretty good friends. My favorite of the big time guys that I ever worked a lot with was Terry Gordy. And we worked a lot of matches all over the Southeast. I was kind of his tune-up guy because I didn't care to get hit. So when he was getting ready to go to Japan, that's a whole different style.
Right.
So you got to lay some stuff in there. And he knew I didn't care, and he knew I'd give it back to him. And then when he would come back, it was the same way. He would try to get with me as much as possible to work matches so that we could tone him down a little bit and get that out of him. It's not easy to just switch that on and off. But I loved working with Terry. Terry was a great guy. I saw him just a couple of weeks before he passed away. He was at a good place in his life, and I'm thankful we had that opportunity to see each other.
Wow. And we just had some recent wrestlers that did die, and a lot of them were your friends, right?
Yeah, I attended the funeral of Bob Armstrong a couple of weeks ago now. Bob was very instrumental in helping me. I got in with Continental as an enhancement guy. They saw potential in me because they always had me under a mask. They never let Jack Lord be seen because they thought eventually they could do something with me. And they did, but it was right at the very end. And I won't say I tanked the company, but I was the main event of their last show. So, but anyway, yeah, Bob was a big help to me. He taught me how to run the TVs and, a lot of the technical aspects behind the scenes, because I knew with bad knees that I was never going to be a big time, full time guy like that. But there's so many things behind the scenes that have to be done. And I knew if I learned those things, the longer I could stay in the industry. And I'm still here.
Now, here's a question for you that I have, because this is asked by a lot of wrestling fans. Is it different than wrestling in a mask and a non-mask? Because you've got, less perception and less peripheral vision, and it's sort of like, all you see is this. Is there a difference?
I never had any real difficulty wrestling in a mask. The biggest thing is it's a different kind of mindset because we're taught initially that facial expressions are very important in selling what you're doing and getting the crowd to believe how mean you are or how much pain you're in or things like that. With a mask, all that's out the window. So you have to learn to do body language more than facial expression. So it's, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. But as far as wearing the mask, I don't know. I always had the eye holes a little bit bigger anyway, so I didn't have a problem seeing.
All right. I have another question for you. When you did wrestle, this is a rumor too, and I'm not trying to dish up dirt, but usually they say when a person doesn't talk and they're still kind of like working their earlier character and they come into the character later and then they start talking a little bit more. Is that planned or is that depends on what character they're going for? Because I know when Kane came in to the WWF or WWE, he was not talking. He cock his head one way or another to give you that crazy look character. And, we know who he is. We know what a great guy he is and what he's accomplished over the years, but his character wasn't really set up yet. It was like the setup was a long, long time, and everybody waited for him to talk. And then when he talked, it was totally different than what his character was. So, is there a certain thing where the character formation is changed by either talking or not talking? Do you notice that?
Yeah. I mean, everything has to change over time. You can't stay the same.
Right.
The difference now is that you see characters like Kane who are, Glenn's been there basically for, I guess, 20 years. So over that time period, you have to progress the character to a certain extent to freshen it up and, and make it more current. Now, back in the territory days, characters like Lord Humongous never talked. But they were never in any certain territory so long that they had to change that character up. He was just as good, when he started as when he, after a couple of years when he left to go somewhere else. And then, when you go to a new place, you're fresh, you're new. So you don't have to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're, the nature of the business is not like that anymore. Guys don't change over. You're seen on a national level. So yeah, you gotta progress the character and freshen it up.
So do they? So here's if you see them outside of the ring, and outside like at Walmart or something like that, and their character, do they maintain the same character because now everybody knows them, or they just pretend to be themselves, or does it depend on a personal preference, you think?
Yeah, it's kind of a personal thing. The vast majority of folks nowadays, they don't carry that character once they leave the arena and they leave the character behind. Recent times, the only one I can think of and he didn't so much maintain his characters, he just maintained his distance, was The Undertaker. And he very much still believed in kayfabe. Now, back in, when I started, you were in character all the time. Until you were in the privacy of your own home, Jack Lord was Jack Lord, and then, to Dad and the husband and all that, that was the side that only people close to me got to see.
So Jack, take me through a wrestling tour. You don't get to see your family. It's not all pomp and circumstance. You sleep in hotels and motels. And you got to get out there and get into the gym, warm up, get yourself ready. What is the day like in a day of a wrestler that goes on tour?
It's tough. I stayed primarily in the Southeast. I did manage to get a few shows in New York State, California, and a few places, but primarily in the Southeast is where I stayed. And, I got hit right off the bat. Most people don't get this experience nowadays, but when I started at 4 to 5 shows a week, and that kept up for the first 9 years that I was in the business before it ever, slacked off and started being more of just a couple of maybe 3 shows a week thing. But yeah, you travel, fortunately or unfortunately, because I always learned to do it without sleep. I was home most nights. I mean, I might not get home till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but I'd get a few hours sleep. I'd get up, I'd go to the gym, and then I'd head out for the next town. But it's tough, being on the road. When I was first starting, my son was born a year before I started. So he was a year old, and there all of a sudden I'm on the road all the time. I tried to take them with me as much as I could. And, that's, being gone so much probably is one of the main reasons that led to that marriage not working out. But I got two great kids out of it. And, I don't know that I would change anything. Life works out for a certain reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I totally agree with you there. So in wrestling, do you actually get to choose who you want to go against, or does the promoter choose who he thinks is best for you as a best fit, or, a David and Goliath type of thing, or, he's going to just destroy him, but there's always people that love that. So.
Well, a vast majority of the time, it's the promoter or booker as to who they want you to work with. After you've been in a promotion for a while, you can, go to those promoters and bookers and ask, hey, I would like to work with, Joe Blow over here, and because I think we could do some business together.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, I don't remember ever being turned down. Maybe, something delayed because they had something already in mind for either me or that guy. But eventually, I'd get to work with who I wanted to work with.
Oh, nice. Because we did talk to Stone Cold. We talked to George the Animal Steel. And we also talked to Jimmy Boogie Woogie Valiant, who's still around, by the way.
Yeah.
And that was a couple of years ago. But their comments were that they loved every moment wherever they did, because they were always flamboyant, always out there and being their character. And they always brought the best they could, even Roddy Piper and a lot of the big names, Ric Flair and everybody, and taking all the way back, like we were talking about older wrestlers. How do you feel that some of the wrestlers never got to be in any type of Hall of Fame? They're just forgotten about because they didn't make it to that certain extent. I feel really bad because I think they're all part of the program.
Yeah, everybody from the enhancement guys on up, are an integral part of the business. I believe it was Ron Fuller that made the statement of, the top guys couldn't be top guys without the bottom guys helping build them. Those journeymen, those enhancement guys, they're the ones who, took the beatings and made guys like the Road Warriors look like the beasts. And, those guys are greatly underappreciated. I was one of those guys for several years. So I understand. You can't put everybody in the Hall of Fame, though. The bottom line is you got to look at, from a business aspect, who drew money. And those are the guys, men and women, that need to be honored above all else. So, would I love to be in a Hall of Fame like that, WWE? So sure, but I was never in WWE, so that's not something for me. But just being recognized and people still remembering you, that's a pretty big honor. And I did make it to the Alabama Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, so I did make it that far.
Congratulations! Right. So tell me about some of your promotions. Where you with? You were with the were you with Georgia? Was it Georgia? Florida? Alabama was one. Was there all different promotions?
I worked for tons of different promotions. I had that question a while back, and I actually was going to sit down and try to list them, and I don't, 7 concussions. I don't remember a lot of names.
Some of the big ones.
I'm trying to remember the one out of the Carolinas that I was on. Paul Jones was the booker. Ricky Steamboat was there. That's where I worked with Ricky. It's where I worked with Big John Studd. But I can't remember the name of the promotion. They were an NWA promotions. It was one of the last territories. And of course I worked.
Crockett Promotions, was it?
No, it wasn't Crockett. It was one after Crockett had moved on.
No.
Gosh, I just can't remember.
That's all right, man. That's okay.
Anyway, Continental, of course, was the most prominent, well-known one that I worked with for several years, and the rest of them were just, mostly independent shows here and there. I ran my own shows off and on for years, but mostly now well, for a long time, I booked a lot of independent shows, and I still do that. In the process now of helping a new show get off the ground called Wrestle South, WrestleSouth.com if you want to check us out.
Yeah, sure.
And so we're in the process of getting some buildings secured, and of course, this COVID stuff has had us slowed down. We're sitting on like 200 grand worth of rings and lights and sets and all this kind of stuff, and can't do anything.
Yeah, I know.
So frustrating.
It's very frustrating, but you know, when it does come back, and when it does come back, it's going to be huge because people can't wait to get back out.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. So, in your wrestling time, who would you have wanted to wrestle that you couldn't wrestle now because you know you're done?
Oh gosh, man,
that's another hard question, right? Because
it is a hard question because there's so many great, talented people. You know, I'm part of a bi-weekly podcast now that promote it. Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. We're on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursday nights, and we cover primarily old school wrestling. We do kind of review SmackDown and Raw on some of the shows, but our focus is the old school stuff. So, you know, I keep my hand in everything.
Sure do, Jack.
I'm not done.
You sure do. I met Ted DiBiase a few years ago, and I'll tell you what a super nice guy he was, and you know, that's before I think he was becoming a minister.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about, you know, his money thing, and he just laughed. He said it was a great character. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making people do things for money. He said that was the best part. He said that he never had so much fun but doing that. And you know, after the wrestling, when the lights were out, he would go over to the people and say, "Listen, thanks for being a good sport. Thank you for." And I said that, you know, that was really nice of him to do that, because there's not a lot of wrestlers that'll go back and say, you know, thank you for being part of the act type of thing. And I really love that about him, because he was so honest and respectable. And there's a lot of guys out there like that are still in the business that are like that, you know. And I know it's hard to find them. It's hard to find them in there because their characters are so portrayed as such a bad person that everybody thinks that they're a bad person. But there's such a good side to most of the wrestlers. I mean, most of the wrestlers I met, and I'm sure most of the wrestlers you met. So, given the fact that you had all these meetings with all these wrestlers, is there any stories that you you know, you went out to dinner with them, you know, you had a good time? Do you remember any of them times, certain times that you can tell us about?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I met so many of those legendary guys, shared a ring, shared a locker room with. I was fortunate enough. I'm old enough to have shared a locker room with Lou Thez.
Oh wow,
Lou was doing commentary then. This was 85, I believe, in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I remember, you know, most everybody in the locker room kind of stayed away from Lou because they were scared of him. And of course, I knew who Lou was, but I know that you can't learn if you don't ask. So I just saddled on over and said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" And he said, "No, sit down." And I said, "What's some good advice for a young guy trying to make it in this business?" And he said, "Well, I'll give you the most sound advice I can give you." And I said, "Okay." He said, "Sleep as much as you can because you're going to need it." I'll never forget that. I mean, we talked on a little bit about other stuff, but, you know, sitting in that locker room and talking one-on-one with a man who had represented pro wrestling to the entire world, you know, in a big time way. It was a humbling experience. And of course, I got trained by Louis Tilley. Louis been around for years and years, right. Booker and wrestler, and short little guy who put me in holes that made me cry. But I thought the world of Louis. But, you know, guys like him, you know, I've already mentioned Bob Armstrong. My biggest influence was Ron West. who was referee for just about every territory system back in the day, and also worked in the office in the majority of those places. He was the assistant booker in WCW when Ole Anderson was over it. Uh, if it wasn't for Ron, I don't think I'd have had the career I had because, he saw something in me, that hunger and that willingness to learn beyond just being in the ring. I wanted to know everything about this industry. And Ron wanted to teach it to somebody who wanted to learn it. And so we had a great business relationship. And then years later, it developed into a great friendship. And the podcasts that I do now are with his two sons.
Oh,
of course,
beautiful.
Ron left us a few years ago. And, while it's sad, we carry on the things that Ronnie taught us. So, there's tons of those guys and, way too many to get into. I spent a lot of time, of course, with Terry Gordy and Junkyard Dog and just great human beings, and I'm just privileged to have known them on a personal level.
Wow. Is there any matches that stand out in your mind that you went through that you want to share with our listeners or viewers about what was so memorable about some of the matches?
Well, I had a lot of matches with Terry. I'll never forget the first one because Terry was the first big name wrestler that I ever wrestled. And we were the main event, and I was scared to death because not so much of Terry, but because I was afraid I would screw something up. And looking, after that match was over with, I was thinking, this is probably the best match I've ever had. But I was also thinking, this is probably the worst match that Terry ever had because I was not very good at that point. But I got to wrestle Mr. Wrestling #2. I remember that first time wrestling with him in a tag team match. And my tag partner made the fatal mistake of grabbing his mask. And that was a rule that we were actually told before the match, don't touch his mask. Everything will be fine. Just don't touch his mask. And my partner right off the bat tried to pull his mask. and it was on. He beat the crap out of my partner. And I was trepidatious. I mean, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". I was 300 pounds. I was in shape. And 2 was nowhere near as big as me, but I knew the guy could fight if he had to, if he wanted to. So when I tagged in, I expected to get the same thing. And it was just like flipping a switch. He was doing everything in the world for me. I'd tag my partner back in. He'd beat him to death. I'd come back in. He'd sell his butt off for me. So, lots of great experiences for those guys.
Wow, that's amazing. You went through so much as a wrestler in 24 years. You must have seen it all. Did you see the part where big guys like Ric Flair just started out in the NWA, and he was it was working his way up, and look where he is today. It's just amazing to see the prominence of a wrestler that I know back in the 60s that either are at a prominent level right now where they're in awe of them because they've been around so long and won so many titles and done so many things. Or is it just because they were a good worker and they just did what they were told to do?
Talent always rises to the top in some form. I think it's harder for talented guys to get ahead now because you're encapsulated so much.
Right.
But, back 20 years ago, true, pure talent could drive you to the top. Now it's all up to whatever Vince thinks talent is. So,
that's 100% true.
I don't like that, but that's the way of the world. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I remember when Big Boss Man, I was on the card
Ray
first
Traylor,
night.
Ray
Traylor.
What a great guy.
When he had his first match was on the card that I was on. And such a nice guy and never changed. His entire career, he remained just the nicest human being. And as a matter of fact, the promoter that he worked for on his first match, he worked for on his last match. So
Really, really.
Just a little tidbit there, but yeah, Ray was a great guy. I didn't get to see Ray a lot over the years, but Bull Buchanan is one of my best friends, and he and Bull were really close. So I got to keep up with Ray through the years.
Oh, and I gotta say, I love your page too, because when you put Stan the Man lariat there, Stan, I forget his name. What's his name? Stan the Man.
Stan, you talking about Stan Hansen?
Stan Hansen, yeah.
Yeah.
With the lariat, you used to do the lariat, right? Yeah. When you put that picture on, that brings me back.
Yeah.
To the old time wrestling of all the people that you mentioned, and just it takes you. I mean, something like that it makes me think of the early '60s, early '70s when these guys were prominent. I think there was another guy named Stan the Man Stasiak, was it?
Yep, Stan the Man Stasiak.
Now his son,
with the heart punch.
Yeah, his son is who?
Sean Stasiak.
Sean Stasiak, but there was somebody else that said that his son was the Undertaker. No. See, there's a lot of rumors. Yeah. Mark Calloway is the original wrestler that started as the Undertaker. Yep. So, and I know Mark. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and his wife, and they do a lot of charitable stuff, and I love them for that. Do you have other friends like that love to do charities? I mean, a lot of the guys do, because they have extra time where they see some, like homeless people or whatever they want to do. You have a lot of friends like that in wrestling?
Oh yeah, I see that all the time with the wrestlers, especially these younger folks. That really impresses me that we tend to, as older folks do.
Right.
I'm 61 now, so I can say I'm a little older. But we tend to look at the younger generation as uncaring, as they don't appreciate things. But I see so many of these young people in our industry that are helping these charitable causes that aren't being directed by WWE or AEW or any company that they work for. They're going out on their own, and they're doing appearances, or they're giving of their time and of their money, and they're donating things, and I think that these folks do not get the recognition that they should for the things that they do. But quite frankly, most of them don't seek that recognition, which is another great thing in my opinion.
You have to find it, or you won't find it, is what
right.
You
mean. Yeah, they're not reporting it. Somebody else will find out and put it out there in Facebook land or social media. But I admire folks like that. I really do.
So tell me more about your podcast. What your podcast goes over old wrestling? You said, and it touches on SmackDown and Raw. And what is your you do SmackDown and Raw with Shane running it and Triple H running it? And of course Vince is in the background pulling the strings. I understand that, but it's changed so much. I mean, because you don't have the audience participation now. You've got monitors there, and I don't get the same readout that I would get from a person's face that, what a bad person did or a good person did. So I want to know what your opinion on that.
Well, we Monday nights, Tuesday nights, we have certain subjects we touch on. Monday nights, we have our general discussion, and then we'll review like the old episodes of week by week of Mid-South Wrestling. Those are very popular, and we're going to start posting those episodes actually on our Facebook page so that people can watch and then follow along as we talk about it.
Right.
And then Tuesday nights, again, it's just, different subjects, and then we talk about our review of SmackDown that night. Thursday nights, same thing, and then we review the previous Monday night's Raw episode. Yeah, and I deem myself the baby face of the trio because I really try to find the positives in what WWE does, and there are some positives. It's not all negative. And the biggest thing that I point out to our followers is don't judge today's product with old school eyes, because it's a totally different atmosphere. Professional wrestling and sports entertainment are two different animals. They still wear spandex, but that's pretty close to the extent of it. I wish WWE would quit um, putting everybody in the same mold. That's one. My biggest gripe to them is let people have some freedom. Let them develop their own characters and quit doing it for them.
Right.
Because the writer sitting in a room does not know the experience that somebody like a Roman Reigns has been through. Or a Dolph Ziggler or any number of those there. Rely on them. Give them some bullet points. Let them say what needs to be said, but say it in their way. The one aspect I like about AEW is that they're letting those people develop their own characters there, and I like that. Now, I can't stand all the leg slapping and all the high spots all the time.
Right.
But for the first time, this past week's show, this week's show, I watched and I actually enjoyed it. Because I saw storylines being followed through and new stories being set up, and it seems like they slowed down just a little bit and we're trying to still tell actual stories in the match. And the basis of our industry, whether it's sports entertainment, whether it's professional wrestling, whatever, it should be about telling stories. And you can either tell a story or you can tell a trash novel. And I wish they would get back to the good stories and get away from the trash.
See, that's what I love about the old time wrestling. There wasn't a lot. I mean, there was some things, flash bangs in the face and somebody spitting green stuff in somebody's face. I get all that. That I get that. That makes it more, that person can't see or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But somebody taking somebody's eye out and somebody, it's just beyond crazy now. The storyline is obscured to a part where it's more like a scary story than a story. And anytime you risk bodily injury or bodily harm on somebody, that's even worse. Let's face it, sports entertainers are entertainers. They got to get up and they got to go do another sports entertainment the next day or another couple days. So I'm not saying you don't get hurt. I know you guys get hurt. I know that. I'll stand behind somebody and say, you guys get hurt. You jump off top ropes. You do other things. But the thing is, people think that they want to make it believable. You know what I'm saying? That Rey Mysterio lost his eye. Come on. And that's the part that really gets me. I don't like that. I don't like when they play that game with people. Then they bring the family in. And then everybody's crying, everybody's upset for his son Dominic, who they were going to bring Dominic in anyway as Rey Mysterio's second, because Rey's getting old, right? So we can have commentary about any of this because the problem is they don't see what the wrestler audience sees, and this comes from the majority of people. They don't want to see that stuff. They just want to see you wrestle. We talked to, and this has nothing to do with wrestling, but this pertains to the same situation. My friend Jim McCann, he is a MMA guy. He's been touring all over the world for over years. He's sells CDs and videos and all, and he's met a lot of these wrestlers. And he taught a lot of these police academies how to do self-defense. And he told me, he said, when it gets to the extreme, he said, that's when they lose the audience. The audience starts backing away. And it's just like you said, if they stick to the storyline that's there rather than add to it, to cut the story off as it's needed and then go on. Because it's not going to sell anymore. You're not going to be able to sell it. And that's the problem with wrestling today. I see. I mean, I like the AEW. I like the TNA. I like the fact that they brought AJ Styles in. I like the fact that they, they're helping other careers, but I think this stuff with what's his name? Under the Shield. He was under the Shield. Seth Rollins.
Yeah. Is
this master guy? I mean, he's just not. He's just a wrestler. So people aren't buying it. And if you're selling it, people aren't buying it. Why would you keep selling it?
Well, I equate that, when I go see a movie, Star Wars, one of my favorite movies.
Oh, I love Star Wars.
Now,
Yeah.
I know it's not real. I know that nothing that's happening on that screen is
Right.
real, but the story is so well told that for that 2 hours that I'm sitting there, I forget all that.
I get you.
You know, I get into it and I believe it. And that's what wrestling fans are desperately crying for out there. That's why they're griping and moaning. And you may not, you know, they're putting everything down. Well, why are they putting everything down? You know, it's because they're searching for a reason to love wrestling again. And why are so many people not watching it now? Because they lost their love of it, because they can't find that portion of realism that we used to portray so well. People know it's not real, but we should present it in a way that you don't know that. And that's where we've lost. WWE seems to be more content on promoting comedy. You know, they don't do serious tag teams, and they haven't in forever and a day. And they've lost such great tag teams that, you know, may not make the same money, but they're off other places getting the respect that they deserve.
I totally agree.
And getting to apply their craft. And you know, a lot of the singles people, Rusev is a perfect example. That guy was over so big that Vince didn't like him. So he was not going to put the cart behind him and push him along, which is a shame. And I think AEW has the perfect opportunity to shove that up his nose,
right,
and show him, hey, here's another missed opportunity you had. So, yeah, you know, fans are looking. You know, you're not – I always hated kayfabe days. I did. I was never comfortable telling people, yeah, it's real. You know, I would just always say, look, just buy a ticket and, you know, determine what you think. Right. You know, and the greatest compliments I ever got was after shows, fans would wait in the parking lot and they would find me and come up to my car and they would be talking and they would make this statement, look, man, I know wrestling ain't real, but man, you really got mad at that guy tonight. You really hurt him. And I would just go, well, you know, just be back here next week. Let's see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
So that, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're looking for a reason to want to watch again. They want to watch. Those fans are still out there. They're just not watching because we're not giving them a product as a whole, you know, for them to key in on anymore. And that's the industry's fault, not just Vince. That's everybody's.
No, and we
got to give them that.
Well, you think it's I think it's us searching for the second Undertaker. Or you know, like Rusev being like Nikolai Volkov. When you compare the guys as the wrestlers that preceded them, and the ones that are now there, they're great body guys. They're great, you know, workers. They can, you know, and they can hold the microphone. They can do great stuff. The thing is, are the people accepting that? And sometimes the answer is yes. And then the promotion takes him out. And then what are you doing? Why did you take Rusev away? He was so good, you know, good on the mic. And I've always said Cesaro, that guy is an amazing athlete. I don't care if he's good, bad, ugly, different. He's amazing. He can do a lot of things. And they, you know, take him away and may bring him back. They take him away, just like they do with The Undertaker. The thing is, you can't compare The Undertaker because he's so tall, and he did over-the-ring tricks, and he did all these other special, you know, death-defying grips, you know, the tombstone, and then, of course, the thing with the legs and stuff. And I mean, he did a lot of moves that a lot of other wrestlers won't do because they're afraid to initiate it so they wouldn't hurt their partner, right? You know that. Because we got to wrestle the next day, right? We got to make money for the promotion. So when you look at that, you say, oh my God, who is going to be the next Undertaker? Well, right now, there is none. So they try to bring Bray Wyatt back as this crazy fiend, which I'm not buying. I'm not saying he's not a good guy. I'm not saying he's not a good wrestler. I'm just saying that the story they're selling isn't working. People aren't buying it. But they're pushing it down our throat. And it's forcing people away. That's what I see.
Yeah, I thought Bray Wyatt was an amazing character.
Yes.
I thought there was all kinds of potential there. I don't care for the Fiend. And that has nothing against Bray Wyatt.
Right.
It's just that character. I understand what you're saying. They're trying to recreate a Undertaker-esque or Kane-esque type character, and it's just not there. His crazy Louisiana backwoods character, that worked. That was a little different, but I don't know, trying to recreate has always been, it seems like, Vince's downfall in characters. Especially, really, there has been no huge star since The Rock.
Very true.
He was, and who created The Rock? The Rock did. Stone Cold Steve Austin created Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was when guys were given freedom to develop the characters that they felt most at home with. I went through that with my career. Promoters were looking for a tall guy with long hair, bleach blonde, and I did that, a pretty boy type thing. I hated it. Absolutely hate it. I could never connect because I'm a family guy. I don't party. I don't do any of those things that character did. So I could not associate with it, in my heart.
Right.
So I was just playing a role, but I wasn't connected to that role. And when they left me alone and they started letting me, I shaved my head and I started being the ex-military guy who just was mad at the world and just wanted to hurt people because that was what I was good at. It didn't matter if I was a good guy or a bad guy. My style never changed. It was just the people that I went after. The fans reacted either positively or negatively, but I could connect with that character because I was that character. I just had the volume turned up on who I am. Well, those guys are the same way. The Rock is the Rock, and Stone Cold is Stone Cold. Those are that's really who they were, just that volume turned up. Well, there's, the volume's turned down on everybody now. I think Roman Reigns could be tremendous, but I think Vince is still leaning towards wanting to make him the Rock 2.0, and he can't be the Rock 2.0. What he needs to be is Roman Reigns #1, the first Roman Reigns, and that could be said of any character, especially with Bray Wyatt. That was a great character. From my understanding, that was he developed that on his own. So he associated with it. All this stuff that they're doing with the Fiend now, it just confuses me.
It does.
That's art house stuff, and I'm an artistic guy, but I ain't that artistic.
Well, I wanted to ask you. Let's talk about some guys that, and I'll just read them off. Like, how about Big Van Vader? Vader. We know was an ex-football player, great guy, awesome person. And he was actually, when I saw him come on WCW, I was thinking of Darth Vader. And I think that's what they were thinking in their mind with the mask and everything. Leon was amazing. Just an amazing person. I seen him on different TV shows. And he was just a real altruistic guy. What was your opinion of Vader? Have you ever met him? Have you know him?
I never met him. I know a lot of people who do.
Character.
Yeah. Now the character, I thought he was awesome.
Yeah.
He was a big man who worked like a big man. He was a force of nature, really.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the Van Vader part was any different from Leon White. Again, he developed that character. I think they came up with that character in Japan, but he fit that role and he made it his own. And I always loved watching him work. I didn't think he got treated right in WWE, but that happens to a lot of people. But he was money. He was money.
How about our buddy Tugboat?
Oh, I love Tugboat.
Tuggy's a great guy, isn't he?
Man, I'm telling you, every character he did, he made believable. He got into it. He always came across to me, no matter what character he was, as a guy who was thoroughly enjoying everything he was doing.
Always smiling, always happy. Yep. How about Earthquake?
I loved his character too. I think he was great, especially as a heel. I forgot that last gimmick he did in that oddities group. I didn't. I thought that was kind of silly because everybody knew who he was, but I thought he was really good. John Tennant was really good.
How about Yokozuna?
I worked with him when he was in Continental. Rodney was just one of the nicest guys you would ever meet. I mean, I know several members of that family, and never met one that wasn't just a great person. So and for him to reach those heights with WWE did not surprise me at all. He worked hard. He was amazing for a guy his size, and he left us way too soon.
Okay, I have Andre the Giant.
Andre, I got to watch him wrestle live one time, and I'm telling you, if you never saw him live, you missed something. I saw him back in the days when there was no music. We didn't have entrance music, and he came out of that locker room, and that building exploded because Andre truly was one of the biggest stars in our industry. Yeah. And he knew not to come and stay anywhere very long. I know that was hard on him with all the travel, but he was a huge asset to our industry, and somebody that only comes along, I think, once every 50 years or so.
How about the Big Show, Paul White?
I love him. I never thought WWE fully utilized him the right way.
Right.
But, for his size, amazing athlete. He's
another guy that can jump off the top rope or jump, over the ropes. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah. I remember when he got knocked off the top of that big building and lived.
and remember when he took down the whole set, the whole WWE ring with somebody else. I forget who it was. Can't remember, but it was another wrestler. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to talk about your Big John Studd.
Man, I got a lot of fond memories of John. I had never met him before. Always been a fan of him. I always liked, being a big guy. I always liked big guys. And we were in somewhere in North Carolina filming the TV, and Ronnie West was the one who got me on the shows, and he said, "Hey, you gonna work Big John Studd tonight?" Well, I was excited about that, but a little scared too, because I'd never met the guy before, and I knew he was supposed to be big, and man, he was. I mean, he was legit, 6'10", 380, I think. So anyway, come in and he walks over and, introduces himself, and he said, "Let's step over here in the shower where we can have some privacy. Let's talk about our match." I said, "Okay." So we walk in the shower, and he said, "All right, kid, what can you do?" And I said, "Sir, I can do anything you tell me to do." And he smiled, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "We're going to get along just fine." And he said, "I tell you what," he said, "let's start the match off." He said, "You get on me, thumb me in the eye." And he said, "Just stay on me till I decide it's not good or it's time for me to take over." And there was one takeover spot because there was a deal where the Godfather, he was doing a different gimmick then, but he came to ringside to distract John, and then I was to hit him from behind and take over again. Basically, I controlled the entire match until that one spot, and then right up till the finish. And we came back in the back, and I remember Paul Jones walking over. Paul Jones was the booker, and Paul Jones walked over, and he shook my hand, and he shook John's hand, and he said, "John, you really like that kid, don't you?" Yeah, fond memories with John. He was a great guy.
Wow, and I think his son is wrestling now, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a nephew that did try to wrestle. I don't know if he's still at it or not.
Wow, Jack, that's really good information. That's awesome. I also want to ask you if I get any questions, but in your wrestling career, did you ever find you went too far? In other words, did you actually push a move too far where you were actually going to hurt somebody? I mean, it can happen, you jump, you take a head, you do a head scissors, you do whatever, the arm bar, whatever, and you can hurt somebody really bad if you
Uh,
rip them the wrong way, move the wrong way, take the bumps the wrong way. Anything can happen.
yeah, and never intentionally.
No, absolutely not.
I had a guy that I was working a regular show on Saturday nights, and he would come in, and he was always drinking, and I couldn't stand that. I can't stand for anybody to be in a locker room impaired in any way, because it's dangerous. So, and I had said something to him a time or two. I was just on the show. I wasn't a booker, promoter, or anything like that. And he kind of, got a little short with me and let me know that he didn't care what I thought. And so anyway, after about 3 weeks of him coming in that way, the promoter, he came in that third week, and the promoter told him, he said, "Hey, you're working Jack tonight." And he kind of mouthed off a little bit, and so he come over, and he said, "Want to know what I wanted to do?" Well, I was the baby face that night. I said, "Well, just, when I'm coming through the ropes, just go ahead and jump on me, start kicking me in the back. And we'll just go from there." And so when I come in, he kicked my head off. And I thought, okay, that's one, but it's not baseball. I don't give you 3 strikes.
Oh, wow.
So as I'm trying to get up, he kicks me in the head again, hard. So that was it. So I come up, and I popped him real good a few times, and doubled him over, and I went for a double arm underhook, and I was just going to suplex him. And as I started to go up, he tried to get out of it. Well, when he went down, I was already going up, and I dislocated both his shoulders. And I didn't realize, it didn't dawn. I mean, I knew something had happened, but it didn't dawn on me. And I thought, I just need to get him out of the ring and let him get counted out. So I pick him up, and I tossed him over the top rope. And about the time he cleared the top rope, I thought, crap, he can't catch himself. and he hit that concrete pretty hard.
Oh, wow.
And so anyway, he never came back. So, I I hate that I hurt him, but, he kind of had it coming. I never, I don't think I don't remember ever accidentally hurting anybody. And you get in there with some guys that want to test you sometimes, and I never started anything, but I never let anything go either.
So there was an attitude adjustment there, one way or the other.
Yeah. There was the guy at the bar show that night that found out if you get hit with a bar stool hard enough, it does knock you out. So.
Oh, wow, Jack, that's really cool.
Stuff happens.
Well, we're almost done. We got a couple more minutes. I want to ask you your favorite wrestling match of all time, either by you or by somebody that you watched and it was something that was iconic to you. You remember in from now to then, when you started.
Well, match I watched to this day, one of my favorite matches was on the first Clash of Champions. It was the Fantastics against the Midnight Express.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was probably the most well-paced match I have ever seen in my life. Everybody was exactly where they needed to be at every step in that match. And I have watched that thing probably 100 times and get excited every time that entrance music comes on. As far as my favorite match was the one Terry Gordy and I had in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's on YouTube. And that was back in, I'm dating myself, 1996.
Oh, wow.
And I had a great mullet back then. So just
if
anybody ever watches it, just remember that was in style.
I'm looking now. I'm going to look for it. And the other question I have for you, the worst match, and it's kind of hard to say, the worst match that you ever seen that you would hope that it was going to do better, and you were disappointed at the end.
Oh, gosh, I've seen a lot of bad matches.
Well, just like one off the top of your head, that's all.
I can't even remember the guys. I was booking a show up in Cleveland, Tennessee one time, and two guys were so bad, and I still wrestled at the time too. The match was so bad that I just decided that I was going to hit the ring and beat both of them up. I mean, it's a work, but I knew I had to stop the match and get some kind of excitement at the end of it. And those guys had eyeballs about that big around when I come in, because they knew I wasn't supposed to be there, but they also knew they were in trouble.
Wow, that's really cool. So, and one more thing, you're the worst character that was ever done by a wrestler that was told by a promotion. Which one do you think that would be?
Santa Claus.
I go with the Red Rooster. Terry Taylor was an accomplished wrestler.
He was.
And Vince McMahon starts this thing called the Red Rooster. And he's got a cock-a-doodle-doo. Just like the gobbledygooker. I mean, these are just far-fetched, weird ideas, and they never caught on. And I think they hurt his career, because he was doing so well. And then he had to go
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I can't get over that. So I'm watching this match now, and I see you wrestling Terry Gordy. And of course, Terry Gordy was from the Fabulous Freebirds.
Yeah.
And they were a great thing. And wow, yeah, you got a mullet. And you got hair.
Yeah.
But when I look at this match, this match took place when? What year?
96, I believe.
96, okay. So that's when you were still prominent as a wrestler, as a worker?
Yeah, well, I wrestled all the way up to 2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought you just recently retired like a couple of years ago.
I've been retired for 11 years now.
Okay, well, I don't want to hold you up any longer. I want to thank you for the time. I want to find out, too, if I can maybe get this podcast on our network. I would love to help bring this to our radio listeners and also our radio wrestlers that love
I appreciate that.
So let me know how I can do that. Just text me, say, okay, well, this is how you get the podcast, and we got approval from, the two guys, and, we'll add you to the network, and then I can. Yeah,
we're on Facebook, Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, and it's also on YouTube. So you could probably link our YouTube account to whatever. Yeah, I don't know how all that works.
What I mean is I don't like to just grab something and then put it on there. I like to get the approval of the people that are doing the podcast.
I got you.
I'm able to do it.
I'll hook you up with Brent, and he's the one who actually is over everything. Rodney and I are just the talking heads.
No, I understand, because I asked Stone Cold the same thing, and Stone Cold said, well, he said, if it was my idea, I would definitely have it on every network. But he says, unfortunately, I'm under contract with this company, and I'd have to ask them. And of course, I never heard from them. So I'm just assuming that, it wouldn't work. So
yeah, well, we're looking for every bit of help we can get. So
I will definitely help you in any way. Jack, I want to thank you for your time. It has been a great question and answer type of thing. And you were, you're perfect. You were excellent. And every now and then I'd love to come back and talk maybe more about your show. What
sure.
You guys talk about on the podcast, and update us on that a little bit, and help sell that a little bit more for you. So I want to thank you again for your time.
Well, thanks, Gene. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good day and good weekend.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.